Hello and welcome to the Kick in the Creatives podcast, hosted by myself, Sandra Busby, and my fellow creative Tara Roskell, offering you interviews, inspiration, motivation, and a gentle prod in the right direction. And for lots more information, challenges, and other useful tools to help you get creating, you can go to www.kickinthecreatives.com. And of course, this is where you can also find today's show notes. Enjoy the show. Welcome to today's episode, which is all about the Artist's Playground. But before we get onto that, we just want to say a big thank you to our latest Ko-fi supporters, Joanna Brown and Marcia Furman. Honestly, your continued support helps us to keep this podcast going, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, not only does it help towards running the cost of Kicking the Creatives, but also helps us keep doing what we do. And it shows that you like what we're doing.
We also want to thank everyone who's been sharing their work for the challenges with us on social media. So we've got Jackie Hussey Palowski. She's been doing the 5-minute March challenge. And for that, she's been doing these really fun and colourful animal drawings in a kind of cartoony style. And she's been including some really fun captions to go with them. So I've been really enjoying those. Have you seen those, Tara?
Yeah, I love those. She can make a book of those.
I know. I kind of thought something similar. I just thought they were so fun. Also, Valeria Holodniak. I hope I've pronounced your name right. She's working her way through the Kicks 365 challenge, and she does these really fun little drawings with text in the most gorgeous handwriting, instantly recognisable as hers, I think. She's actually passed the 300 mark now as well, so she's doing really well. Anyway, what's caught your eye?
Well, Nicole Alice, she's been doing the 50 Ways to Draw a Face challenge, and she's been drawing Captain Picard from Star Trek. Do you remember?
No, I never watched Star Trek. I know that there's going to be lots of people switching off now because I'm not a Star Trek fan or a Star Wars fan either.
Well, anyway, she did one that I really liked especially, and that was using letters in the face. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then also Rob Myers, who I'm a big fan of anyway, his work. Not a fan of Rob particularly. He's not like a pop star or anything, but, you know, his
he
work.
Looks like a pop. I've seen him. He looks like a pop star.
He does a bit, yeah. But he did this one drawing that I like all his work, but it was one he said was inspired by a French graffiti artist, and it looked absolutely amazing. He was worried about the composition of it, but I thought it worked really well.
Is that where he said the face is misplaced or something?
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, because it is, you know, off centre or whatever, it almost looks, I think that worked better than it would if
I
it
did
was.
too.
Because it looks accidental.
Well, it looks slightly unnerving as well, which I thought works.
All of his stuff is unnerving. And I mean that, Rob, in the nicest possible way. But your art is disturbing sometimes, but not in a dark, well, yeah, in a dark way, not in a sinister way, if you know what I mean. And I think that must be what you're aiming for, but it definitely works. I've always said his stuff would be good on an album cover.
Oh, it would do, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Death metal sort of thing.
Yeah, death metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Rob's as well.
Yeah. Anyway, Sandra, what is new with you?
Well, I am in the in-between stage now. So I've obviously just finished my crushed Coke can painting. Anyone who hasn't seen that, if you check out my Instagram, sandra.busby, you'll be able to see it. Although by now it'll probably be a few posts back. But yeah, so I've just finished that one and I've yet to start another. And it's a stage that I always find a bit uncomfortable, that in-between stage where I actually haven't got anything on the go and I haven't set anything up to paint either. But I normally leave it a couple of weeks before I start panicking. And I've got a lot to do for Kicking the Creatives at the moment that I need to get done before I actually think about anything else. So, you know, that's got to come top on my list at the minute. I've taken that painting that I've just finished along with a few others, ones that I hadn't yet had photographed professionally. So I've taken them all to have some prints made. So I'll be putting those up on my website soon. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm waiting for those images to come back to me. Yes. Yesterday, you might have seen this, Tara. I got a really unexpected email from a client who commissioned my huge marble painting. You know, my big painting of marbles I did. And I did it back in 2018. Now, it's very rare for me to get to see one of my paintings hanging on someone's wall. Usually once it leaves the studio, all I have, left of the painting is a photo of it. But they actually sent me a photo of the painting on the wall along with a video of the entire space it was in. And I was so chuffed. It really made my day. And it really suited the space. And I sent you the video, didn't I? It's not something
gorgeous.
I could...
the whole house. And it really suited as well, your painting. But the house, oh my God.
I know. It was something I imagine like some kind of Hollywood movie star would live. It was pretty amazing. And it was really nice because, like I say, when you have an image of a painting, that's one thing. But when you have a photograph of it actually up in its space, it puts it into some kind of a context in a way, doesn't it? It's where it should be. And so they sent me a photo, then they sent me this video, and I did think, gosh, with a room like that, I'm pretty honoured that my painting is in it.
Yeah.
It was
so good.
Amazing. So that was, I really enjoyed seeing that. And it's not something I could just go and see anytime soon myself because it's in Massachusetts. And of course.
Oh, perhaps you should say you need to come and see it.
I need, it's a bit wonky. Can I come and straighten it, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll take a few days as well. So you might need to stay over.
Yeah, of course. And, I might get a bit hot over there, so I might need to use the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was great. But that's basically all my news at the moment. I haven't really got any, but what about you? What is new with you?
I don't know anything new. I've been really focusing on Twitter a lot again. For everybody on social media, because do you remember we talked about this before, how people always say that as artists, we need to show our faces. And anybody really, you need to show your face on social media so people can get to know you as well as your art, as a person.
Yeah.
So I'm subjecting everybody to my face quite regularly. I'm so sorry you're having to see that as well as my work.
I love seeing your face, Tara.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
And it always makes me laugh.
Oh, thanks. Actually, I need to ask you about my face at some point. I'll do that off air, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so what I did, what was quite fun, do you remember the doodly, animal-y faces I was doing quite a while ago? Which I had real fun with them. And I decided that they might work quite well as NFTs, but I thought I'll have to go with one of them just to see if I can animate it. And it was quite a fun thing. I mean, it takes me quite a long time because I'm not an experienced animator, but I did manage to get like little eyes blinking and the little leg moving and stuff. So that was quite fun.
I saw that. I saw it and I thought it was amazing. I mean, your face ones that you animate, I think they are really, really, really good, but they almost have a bit like we were talking about Rob earlier. There's something slightly
creepy.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the word? It's not sinister and it's not dark, but slightly creepy about them, but in a good way, and yeah. But this one is such a different type of, even though it's definitely you, and it's so different, but it's kind of more fun and
whimsy. I'd say it's whimsy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, I've been working on some more, I'm doing the charcoal. They're much more moody than the ones I just mentioned.
Yeah.
They're kind of moody charcoal ones. So I've been working on that a lot more. And I want to build it up into a bigger sort of collection of pieces. And I did one that I really liked, actually, of those. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if it had been your sort of thing, actually. I did it on a sort of dark blue. I did a blue ink background and then worked on top of that. Mm. And it was almost, I took it, you could tell it was a face, but it was further away from reality, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Depends what it is.
It's not about my face, but
no.
So I know that you used to say you hated charcoal when we first started this podcast a few years ago. And now you obviously work with it a lot, so that's changed. But how do you get around the fact that charcoal is not permanent? It is, but it isn't. If you wipe your hand across it, you'll have black hands. Do you see what I mean? Do you always set them somehow?
Well, no, because the reason I'm liking charcoal now is because I'm using it a matte medium.
So you put matte medium over all of the charcoal?
No, so what I do is I start off with my charcoal face. So I'll draw a very loose charcoal face.
Yeah.
And then I squirt. It's a very beautiful procedure where I squirt matte medium onto it. And then I get a little kid's sponge roller and I roller over it.
Okay.
And then
over the whole lot, all the areas of charcoal.
Over most of the areas of charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hairdryer that. And then I wait for that to dry, add a bit of acrylic for like white highlights where I want them. And then I'll do another layer. So I do charcoal again, and some matte medium squirted on top, and roller it. So there are still areas. So it's not like fix, because there will be areas I'll probably miss with a roller. But there's so much less come offable.
Come offable. That's a new term.
So much less come offable. So I'm not actually
smudgeable.
I'm not actually spraying them with fixative or anything. I'm keeping them in a box, but I'm just putting a layer of acid-free paper in between.
Have you ever tried that with soft pastels, like chalk pastels?
Yeah, I did it with chalk pastels, but I've only got quite cheap chalk pastels, and I think you'd really need some with some really good pigment in. Yeah. But it does work really well with Inktense blocks. You know, you can get the blocks like the pencils.
Yeah.
They're very much like pastels, aren't they? You've tried those, haven't you?
Not the blocks. I've got the pencils.
Well, if you can just imagine those in kind of block form, like a pastel.
They're so bright, aren't they? They're really
but you
wet
basically
them.
Just using the matte medium instead of water, and obviously that again fixes it a lot more. Although they're not too bad anyway.
No, they're like coloured pencils. They're permanent pretty much anyway, aren't they?
So it works quite well with those. So and that's it really. So I haven't sold any NFTs though for a week or so.
Yeah, but you sold 8 the week before, so we won't worry about that. Anyway, so let's get on to today's episode. So today we are talking about the artist's playground. And Tara, you know how much I love an analogy, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Yes. As we know, a child always performs better at school when they're also allowed a bit of time to exercise, to play, not be a slave to the rules. They've got their time then to have fun and just let go. And I think it's the same for artists. If an artist allows themselves time to, let go and have a bit of fun, then they'll work better at their more serious pieces. And one of the things this helps us with is to lose our inhibitions, because this isn't necessarily stuff that will appear in our other work. So it doesn't have to be seen or judged by anyone. And again, we can liken this to our grades at school, which are judged by our efforts in the classroom and not in the playground. But unlike kids, as adults, it's a lot harder for us to let go. And this is something we've got to allow ourselves to do without sort of self-judgment or embarrassment. It's really funny, isn't it, that we can actually get embarrassed of ourselves. It's a strange thing.
It's quite easy. I don't think you've got any inhibitions, have you?
Me? Thanks. Anyway, there are things that we can do to help ourselves let go and start having a bit of fun, which we'll go into today. But first of all, Tara, I wonder, why is it then, do you think, that adults are so much more inhibited than children and generally find it harder to let go?
Because I think over the years, we've gradually been taught, we've gradually got all this criticism, haven't we?
Yeah.
And then you learn that, okay, if we get that criticism, it's better if we don't do it in the first place. We just do what we know either gets praise or nobody mentions. It's like, that's what I think it is though, seriously. I think you learn to try and avoid being criticised.
Yeah.
So whereas when you're a kid, you don't really think about it, do you?
Well, no, when you're a kid, you'll be bounding along the pavement, you'll see a tree branch, you'll leap up, grab it, swing a bit, and then drop down and carry on. If you're an adult, you saw an adult in front of you doing that, you'd think he was a lunatic, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. You completely would. And it is that thing, isn't it? Well, you start worrying what people think, don't you?
You do. Yeah.
But I think one of those ways to get around that, isn't it, to do challenges that they get you out your comfort zone, especially if you pick one that is not something you would necessarily not necessarily do normally. And I actually think, didn't this podcast come around because I read that somebody saying, oh, they hope they're going to have enough ideas for the 50 Ways to Draw a Face challenge.
Yeah, well, we were speaking about it in the last episode, weren't we? We were talking about it, and then we came up with this idea of how you can find different ideas and play and, you know, find different ways of doing things.
Yeah, but that was it, because she was saying she might get stuck. She might draw a few faces and then think, oh, what am I going to do with the next one? Because the idea of the 50 Ways to Draw a Face challenge is that you draw a face 50 ways. So you might draw it in pencil, but then you could draw it in pencil, but a different way. So you might do it with a blind contour or just using straight lines or something. So we thought what we'd do is come up with this podcast where we'd suggest all these ideas. You don't have to use it for the 50 Ways to Draw a Face, but it would just be ideas that you can experiment with and play with and try out. So are you going to kick off with some of the first ones?
Yeah, okay. So I think the first really useful thing about a challenge is that they often come with a list of optional prompts, don't they? I mean, we do them with ours. And I think this is a great way of coming up with ideas that you might not have thought of before. And, you know, with me, I've mentioned it before, I did that challenge with that artist years ago, my artist friend Suzanne Berry. And you know, we were just listing out 5 words and picking one, and then we'd both have to paint something, you know, from that prompt. And it's a good way of coming up with ideas, but it doesn't have to just be about things to paint. So it depends what kind of prompts you've got. You could create your own set of prompts. You don't have to use, you know, ones from other people. And that can be anything from a list of random words, which you can either choose yourself or go to Random Word Generator. Is that the name of the site? This one called Random Word?
I can't remember. But if you just search, yeah.
And you can get some great ideas from you can just literally print out the first, 31 words that come up. But you don't have to stick to just that kind of thing. You could also write down a list of other things like perhaps different styles or different ways of mark making. You might pick one prompt might be squiggles or circles or cubism or something like that. And then what you do is you go through your prompts one by one and you create something which is then, you know, sparked by that prompt. And you could even make it even more interesting by making a list of words and a list of techniques. So, for example, if your word is milky, and your technique is circles, then you could draw a cow using different size circles. A really bad example circles. But you can create some amazing art like this because your circles can be anything from teeny weeny to huge. So it depends whether you want to get a more real style or go for something really abstract. But yeah, so there's a whole host of ways you can use prompts. And like I say, you can always get them from challenges, but you know, I think it's quite fun to make your own as well. You've mentioned before making prompt cards, haven't you?
Yeah, but actually for the 50 Ways to Draw a Face, when I did that, I had a big list of prompts. And what I would do is I'd do stuff like that, put like circles, lines, but I'd also maybe see a piece of art online and I think, oh, I like that. They've done squiggles. Or I like that they've used blocks of colour. So I might even just like take a snapshot of it just to remind me what the prompt was about. I don't actually make the thing look like that, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But I then put the words near it. Use blocky lines.
Right, I see.
So, and I had a huge list of that. So if ever I couldn't think of what to do with the 50 faces, I'd just go and have a look at that list.
Yeah.
And you prepare it in advance as well. You've got that thing to go back to, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that I like to do, and you hate this, Sandra, I know, is draw with something that's really hard to control. So use something like a dropper bottle, you know, like an acrylic ink dropper bottle.
Yeah.
I love drawing like that. I did one of my faces like that. And you just get such interesting marks that you wouldn't normally, because you obviously get some real solidy blobs and then you get some quite scratchy marks. But anything like that can kind of lead to some happy accidents, they make you draw differently to how you would normally. So you're going to get effects that you wouldn't normally expect. And you might hate some and you might like some. But I use kiddie brushes. I've mentioned this before. Those little kids sponge brushes.
Oh yeah, you're the kind of artist that will go into an like hobby craft or something and find a kid's ideal Christmas present for a sponge, sort of like
and things
like that.
Yeah.
You'd be so cheap to buy for.
But what is great about those is it's not like having this really beautiful artist brush that's going to put the thing exactly where you want. It does things that you can't quite prepare where it's going to go. And sometimes that can give you some really nice results, and you get kind of energy into the work, I think, like that. And it also, if you're going to use something like a kid's brush, I think another thing, it takes the fear away, because you'll often have that assumption, oh, it's not going to be great because I'm just using kids' tools. So you can really like let go and enjoy it, especially with the dropper bottle as well. You can really swoosh around with that. But you might be surprised that you actually like it a lot more than you thought.
I guess that's what you call a happy accident, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you do something and you don't know what the result's going to be. It could be terrible. It could be amazing. And then when it's amazing, it's like, wow, I mean, it was a total accident, but I love it.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't suppose you get that with yours, do you? Because you know.
No, not with my realism paintings, no.
You do with sketches, perhaps, more.
Oh, yeah. I'd say that. I don't know. I suppose in a much more subtle way I do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that Coke can, for example.
Yeah.
In the background, you know, I'm doing all these, what do you call them, like little bottle tops, which are quite tricky to get right. And because of the little wrinkly, you know, the bit on the outside, the kind of, what do you call it, like pleated edge.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but, you know, and they can be a little bit tricky. And there was one right at the very back, which I was going to do more with it, but I realised when I put this, I'd used the wrong brush, and it was kind of it was a very hard, stubbly brush, and I just picked up the wrong one. And when I made the mark, I thought, oh my gosh, that's perfect, because I wanted that very blurry background, sort of out of focus look.
Yeah.
And that brush actually worked perfectly. And I just left it. I thought, oh no, that'll do. Actually, that was great. I must remember to use that brush in the future for things like this. So they're the kind of happy accidents I have. But
so that was choosing the wrong tool again.
Yes, just choosing the wrong tool, making a mark and thinking, whoa, actually that really worked.
And you couldn't control that as well. I'm guessing it wasn't a brush for fine detail, was it?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
I love that.
You could also try a style that is perhaps the polar opposite to what you would normally do. So I did this myself. So as you know, I'm a realism painter, but on the side, I sometimes draw really silly cartoons. And that's my way, I guess, of letting go of that pedantic side I have, that where I want to get something, you know, to look just right. And it's the one time when I really do not care about making mistakes. I'll post the mistakes. I don't care about that because it's not important. It's a cartoon. It's meant to be fun. And in fact, I think sometimes mistakes in a cartoon make it look all the more, I don't know, funny, I guess. But if you put my cartoons next to my paintings, you would never believe the same artist did both. And I kind of like that. I like that that's a totally different side of me. And so you could do it the other way around. You know, if you're somebody who, I don't know, likes does abstract paintings, perhaps you might like to try doing cartoons or realism painting or whatever. Just try something different. You might not enjoy it, but at the same time, you might find a different side to you that you didn't know you would enjoy. And that's something you could play with.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing you can do is try thinking about what you're drawing, but think about what it would be like at a different scale. So, for example, one of my faces, I keep going back to my faces, but that's because that's what you
do, isn't it?
Yeah. So in one of those, I put little people inside the head of one of my faces. So it looked like the big head was a basket of a balloon.
Yeah.
So yeah, just alter the scale of something. It could also be like, if you can imagine, say you like drawing fruit, for example, you could make that piece of fruit enormous and then put all things tiny below it, like it's a skyscraper or something. You could have a skyscraping banana, couldn't you? Or you could have this tiny little apple that's resting on a fingertip. Just to make things a little bit surreal, a little bit more interesting. You're not even having to paint it in a different way. You could still for example, you could still paint that in a realism style, couldn't you? But it's
funny you should say that, because I've been thinking more towards the lines of a little bit of adding a bit of surrealism to my own work, but still wanting to keep it very much in my own style.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the kind of thing I've been thinking about recently, actually.
A skyscraping banana.
Not a skyscraping banana or a tiny apple, but but there you go. Maybe that'll come up.
Yeah.
You'll be going, I want a commission for that. That was my idea. But I have got some other ideas that are more surreal.
Go on then.
Well, I don't know if I want to give away everything, you see.
Okay,
Otherwise,
right.
there's no ta-da moment, is there? People will go, oh, well, yeah, she said she was going to do that.
Boring. Yeah.
I'll tell you off air.
All right.
Well, I guess what you were saying a minute ago about you could go really, really big. If you normally paint really, really big, you could try a miniature. I mean, you might not like it, but it's still going to make you adjust your technique, isn't it? And you might find some different ways of painting, because you have to adapt. You have to adapt your technique to suit
and tools, don't you, really?
And the tools, yeah. Now, like I said, I did this back in 2018 when I did that marble painting that we were talking about earlier. Now, I used to do paintings back then that were around the 30 by 40 centimetre mark, maybe the 40 by 50 centimetre mark, something like that. But generally, I didn't really go much bigger than that. Basically, I was commissioned to do a marble painting, and they wanted this painting to be really big. And it's funny because in that in the photo they sent me, it doesn't look huge, but it looked massive in my studio. But it's the size of the room, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Now, I can't remember the exact size of what that painting was, but it was about 3.5 by 4.5 foot, so significantly bigger than I would usually work. And so each marble was bigger than my head, put it that way, or at least as big as my head. And, the marbles I was doing at the time would have been more about the size of I don't know, the biggest one might have been the size of a cup.
Oh, God, I thought you were going to say size of a boob.
Depends whose boob it is. So anyway, I remember panicking a bit at first because I was really worried, because working on a large scale, such a large scale meant I had to change my technique. I needed to use much larger brushes, much broader strokes, bigger marks, but still end up with my usual style at the end of it, because they wanted a painting in my style. But of course, if I'd have tried painting that painting using my usual tools and my usual brush strokes, it wouldn't have worked. It would have looked incredibly overworked. So I did. I had to adapt. And it worked, and they absolutely loved it. Now, whilst I wasn't actually trying to experiment or change my style, what it did teach me is not to be afraid to go big or try something new. And actually also using bigger brushes can be a really good thing, even in a smaller painting. So, yeah, I learned a lot from that painting, and I've worked, a bit bigger than I used to ever since, really.
You sounded like you were boring yourself at the end of that sentence.
Yeah, shut up, Sandra. You're waffling now.
Another thing you can try, and I used to do this for, I don't know if you remember those purpley abstract faces I used to do quite a few years ago. So when I first started out drawing abstract faces, I had no idea how to abstract something. It's like, what do you do? If you're used to drawing something relatively realistic, then, how do you start? And one of the ways I did was to find a distortion app. And there are these on like the App Store for your phone. I know there's quite a few for the Apple one. I can't remember which. I think it was something like the Body Editor or something that I used. It's called something similar. But basically, you could put a face in, or you could put anything in, really. And then you can start pulling bits about. It's like if you can imagine you've got wet paint on there, but you could actually take a section of that wet paint and sort of squeeze it and make it bigger and make it smaller. So you can make the eye massive, you can make the nose tiny, you could move the mouth over. And I would do that, and then I would draw it. And obviously I'd use a lot of artistic license because it would look really weird on the distortion app. But that sort of got me in the mode of exaggerating things and moving things. And I think that is a really fun way to start.
especially if you're in an app, you can't really go wrong, can you? Because you don't have to, it's not like making a mistake. You can keep adjusting it. I always remember that Portrait Artist of the Year with, what's his name? He was absolutely amazing.
Christian Hook?
Christian Hook. Oh, gosh.
Oh, he was the best, wasn't he?
Oh, he was amazing. And I remember he'd just done the most exquisite painting. And he actually took, I think it was a credit card or something like that, and suddenly just swiped right across it and smudged it across the canvas. And I remember looking at it thinking, oh my God, what are you doing? That was amazing. What have you done? And then he'd kind of work back into a bit and then swipe it again across another bit. And it came out so well and so interesting. But that would have put the fear of God into me if I'd have done that. But, I guess you could actually spoil a piece if it went wrong, couldn't you? And you're like, oh, but it's just, there's a certain amount of bravery when you're actually doing on a canvas, isn't there? Whereas on an app, that sort of, you can take the fear factor away, can't you?
Yeah, but I mean, you're doing this for a real face. So you'd have your reference photo. You do that in. Yeah. And then you draw. Yeah. So you can mess about, you can undo it.
Yeah. You can experiment on the app before you do it on the actual canvas.
Yeah. And I say you can't, I wouldn't draw it literally afterwards.
No.
But it definitely gives you a lot of ideas what to do.
Yeah.
And do you know what? When you said about portraits there, I never quite understand, and I know everybody has different tastes on these things, but if I was going to have a portrait done, I wouldn't want one of me anyway, but if I was going to have one done, I don't know why you would want one that is just a high realism portrait, like as in it looks like a photograph. Because I always think, well, you want the artist to put some interest, like he did, to do something interesting with it. Because otherwise, I'd have a beautiful photo. It wouldn't be a beautiful photo, but you know what I mean.
Stop it. God. I actually love that self-portrait you did that you use now as your profile picture.
The one I use on Twitter.
Yeah, I love that.
Craggy.
I really like that. I know what you mean, though. There's a lot of people that would say, I mean, that's the thing about realism painting, isn't it? There's a lot of people say, well, what's the point in having a realism painting? You might as well take a photo. I think there's a line between, I like to think that you can certainly still tell mine are a painting.
But yours aren't.
They're not hyper-realism, no.
No, but also they're set, I don't mean they're set up in a bad way.
No,
what I mean is you decided what's going in that, whereas a portrait of a person, if it's hyper-realism, so it looks like a photograph, you might as well have had the photograph.
Yeah.
I know people would disagree with that, totally.
Yeah, I see what you mean, yeah.
But I'd rather have something kind of, whether it's a little bit stylized or something happening with it.
I think you're right. Yeah, I would too. Otherwise, like you say, I don't particularly like having my photo taken. So to have my face massive on a wall in paint, unless it's got some kind of quirk to it, I think I'm with you there.
Unless you hadn't got a really good photograph and someone was making, making it look good, if you know what I mean. Then
it's not really you though, is it?
No, but I mean, like, say someone, had died and you'd got a photograph, but it wasn't, it wasn't amazing, but you could use a few photographs to get a really good, then I could see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You could also collect together a few different pieces of work by artists that you like, maybe 2 or 3 bits, and perhaps you could save it to a Pinterest board. I know you do that, Tara. I would probably print them out because I'm one of these people that kind of needs to see things like there rather than have to look through my computer. But yeah, take some images of art you like by artists you like. Maybe, say for instance, let's go for the obvious, Van Gogh, Monet, Modigliani or something like that. But you could choose any people you've seen online or whatever. Then you would think perhaps how you could combine an element you like from each one to create your own piece. So perhaps you like the brush strokes of Van Gogh, the colour palette of Monet, or the bold outlines of Modigliani. I sound like I know so much about art, don't I? My art history is amazing. I think most people are familiar with those artists, but by taking small elements from each of those styles, you can come up with your own unique way of working. So I guess it's a bit like the Steal Like an Artist, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
And that's what artists do. They see something, they like it, and they use what they see to introduce elements to their own work, and they create their own style by doing that. Be inspired by other artists. Don't copy them, but just take little bits of what you like and use it in your own work.
And I think as well, the more you do that, like say you did that one you said, you might find then that elements of what you come up with there will come out in future work.
Yeah.
That's what I find anyway. You might think, oh, I like the way I did that little piece of that there. So it ends up becoming so far removed from the initial thing anyway that it doesn't matter.
And also, you know, keeping old bits of work. People say, I threw all my old work away. But there's a reason why it's a good idea not to do that, because when you're learning to draw or paint, there's going to be work, isn't there, where you look back and you think, or you look at it and think, oh, that's awful. But I really like that bit. What a shame. You know, that bit was really nice. That's how you learn. If you keep those bits and you look back and think, actually, I really like that part of it. I love how I did, you know, how I made that bit soft focus or whatever. And then you could think, okay, but I can use that then in my future paintings. That's how I'm going to improve. Just keep old work, and every now and then go back through it and think, okay, what was good about it? And actually sometimes what you think isn't very good at the time, later on when you're a more confident artist, you'll think, actually, I don't mind that. That was really good. It's just I didn't have the confidence to see how this quirky piece could be a good piece. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I just wanted to go back and mention that there's an app that I used, but you mentioned I use Pinterest, but I also found at Instagram, I think they make the app. It's called Layout. And all it is an app where you can put multiple pictures in one piece. So say basically it's really for using on Instagram. Like say you wanted to make a mosaic of 4 pictures for your Instagram.
Yeah.
So what I would do, but you can move it around so you can have one picture that's really big and others that are small. So I would put the picture I was drawing for the 50 faces big, and then 3 maybe inspiration pieces that I was using small in the little squares. And then I would make that into a photograph, and I would just have that in front of me to inspire me as I was doing bits.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
So I think, oh, yeah, I'm going to use that. I might use bits of that colour palette or whatever. And honestly, I don't think you looked at any of those pieces and known my sources.
No. Well, that's the clever bit, isn't it? That's where you just take an element.
Or maybe it's because I can't draw very well.
You know that's not true, and I know that's not true.
But you can also do something similar just by taking one completely unrelated piece to what you're doing. So one really unrelated piece of art and get inspired by it. So, for example, I saw an abstract artist that I really like her work, and she was using a grey paper with shapes and colours on it. So I actually took that idea of using the grey with these different colours on it and made it into a face. But mine very definitely looks like a face. And again, I don't think you would look at that and think, oh, she was inspired by that artist.
No. But which is very different than when you see, because I see a lot of artists who perhaps do a lot of work, or they've been to courses with various, artists, and they end up kind of, rather than taking elements from that and learning from it, they're kind of almost trying to be that person. And that's when I think it doesn't work so well, because what happens then, if you take, for instance, someone like Ian Fennelly or Deb Weirs, people that do those, courses like that, and quite often I'll go on Instagram and I'll think, oh, that looks a bit like a Deb Weirs, or that looks a bit like an Ian Fennelly. It's not Fennelly, it's not them, but you can tell that they've been taught by that person.
Yeah,
I think the problem with that is that by trying to be that person, you're never going to be that person. You're never going to be them. And you're never going to be as good as them because you're not them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So you're better off taking what you learn from them and trying to adapt it to your own style. And that way you are learning from them and you're getting better, but you're then trying to do something unique with it.
Yeah, totally. I think there's no harm in drawing a few pieces like them.
No, not at all.
And then you start thinking, how can I take a little bit? Or I think you should take multiple courses from multiple people, or it doesn't even have to be courses. Look at multiple YouTube videos or multiple sources and then work like that. So, okay, Deb has inspired me by, I really like the way she draws eyes or something. But then you might, start looking at other techniques, and you might love a watercolor technique someone else does and think, oh, maybe I can kind of try that out.
Yeah, absolutely. You could also combine mediums that you wouldn't normally put together. So recently I was looking at some of the work by Rob Myers. I think it was, we've mentioned him a lot in this podcast. We're obviously big fans.
We are. Yeah, we feel like Rob groupies, aren't we?
I'm not actually 100% sure it was Rob. You might know this. Anyway, whoever it was, they had discovered that they could actually paint with charcoal by wetting it. Was it him? I don't know.
I don't know. I've done it before. Are you sure it wasn't me you're admiring?
It could be. Now, what you do, you can get charcoal powder, obviously, but you can just grind up a stick of willow charcoal. But by using a wet brush, you can then use it like paint. And I guess you could also dip a piece of willow charcoal in water and draw with that. And I assume
just do it afterwards as well. I've done it afterwards.
Yeah. I assume, or spray it or something with a water bottle. I assume this kind of gives it a bit more permanence too, I guess. I suppose that works like that. But you can try any combination. You could use soft pastels over watercolor or acrylic. There's no end of ways you can combine medias. The only one thing you should definitely not do is use acrylic over oils or something like that, because that's not going to last, because obviously the oils will take a lot longer to dry, so that'll crack. Tara, I know that you discovered that using white medium over charcoal worked really well as well, which we spoke about earlier. But just try different things. Try things you would never normally use and just see. And again, this is, like I say, this is about the artist's playground, isn't it? It's not about trying it on your normal work. I mean, I have set times where I'm like, right, I'm working on a painting. That's not the time I would start experimenting. We're talking about experimenting outside of what you normally do. And then maybe if it works, then you can introduce it to what you normally do. Do you see what I mean? Where is the artist's playground then? Is it a sketchbook, do you think? Or is it just... See, I think it's anywhere, really, that's not your usual canvas for a painting you would normally do if you are limited with time. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it all depends on the type of work you're doing. Maybe you are maybe you are still in the experimental phase anyway, in which case it doesn't matter where it is, does it?
No.
But if like you've got this set style, or if like me, you're trying to contain yourself a little and not be too here, there and everywhere, then I mean, I probably wouldn't experiment so much in a sketchbook, purely because it's not got the robustness if I was doing these things, and I would end up spraying stuff all over all the other pages. And
I know what you mean. Yeah,
it depends what you're doing, I guess, doesn't it? It's whatever suits you.
Yeah,
and of course, what scale? Because if you're going to go massive in scale, you're not going to go probably in the sketchbook either.
No.
Maybe. Actually, which think about, I still keep intending doing some larger scale pieces, and I don't. There we go. That's another thing. Another thing you can do is try choosing one or two colours which you don't normally use, and then go ahead and use them. And there isn't actually a colour challenge that does this. I think it's called something like Colorimbo or something like that.
Right.
But and they basically give you, I think over a month, they give you a few different colour palettes of 2 colours. Or I think it's 2 colours. I've got that right. And anyway, you use those 2 colours in your work. And I've seen people and their results on Instagram, and some are so lovely. It just pops up and you can tell it's the same person, but there's something a little bit different about it. And I have this thing, I never use greens, hardly ever use green.
Really?
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why, but it just rarely, I'm just looking for all of one in front of me's got green on. No. But it's very, very rare that I will use green. But there's also, if you go to sites like Colour Lovers, you can get colour palettes for inspiration there, and just pick one and have a go at maybe using that. And there's also, I think it was, what's that book we've got by the really quirky guy, the one who does sketch, Felix Scheinberger. We've both got that one, haven't we? Yeah. In his, he talks about taking different colours from the colour wheel, like maybe taking 2 that are close together, or two opposites, whatever, and trying those instead of your normal color combination, even if you're drawing something which you would consider relatively realistic in front of you. And I think that's a cool way to experiment.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe if I as a realism painter, try to obviously make my colours appear real, but maybe what if, say, for instance, I was painting an apple, and instead of making that apple, red or green or both or whatever, maybe I could make my apple, I don't know, purple
orange?
and yellow, or orange, or a bowl of fruit where the orange is actually the colour the apple would be. The apple is the colour the orange would be. The banana is, I don't know,
a skyscraper.
Yeah. There's all sorts of ways you can think about this. I mean, obviously this stuff's coming off the top of our heads at the moment, but it's you have these little ideas. You think, well, that wouldn't actually work, but what about if I refined that idea a bit? And that's where having a notebook is a really good idea. Always having your notebook and just, writing down these ideas you have. Yeah. You could also create a few blind contour drawings over each other and work into it. So we all know most of us will know what a blind contour drawing is. So it's where you are just looking at your subject and you're not looking at your page when you draw. So by that, I mean draw one and then maybe turn your page up the other way and then draw again over the top. And what you could do then is when you look down at your page, you could keep turning your page around until somewhere within those shapes of what you've drawn, you see something different altogether. And then you could work from that. And I remember ages ago, it wasn't a blind contour drawing, this one at all, but I was sitting in front of the TV, Paul was watching football, and I was bored because football's not really my thing. So I decided to draw my foot. It was just, my foot was there and I drew my foot just in an outline of pen. And it actually went wrong. I just did something wrong and I thought, oh God, that's rubbish. So I turned the page and I did my foot again, and that foot overlapped the other foot. And then I thought, oh, that's quite cool. So I did it again, and I think I did about 4 or 5 feet, one over each other, just turning the page each time. And the actual page at the end of it was really good. I loved it. And it all started because I made a mistake. So then I kind of just kept working over it. So there are other things you could, get ideas from. I guess that blind contour thing reminds me a little bit of that lady who does the, isn't it the pavement cracks, where she looks at pavement cracks and just finds shapes within it to create creatures?
Carla Sondheim.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
Things, so again, it's just basically you've got your lines there. I mean, you don't have to do a blind contour. You could just do loads of squiggles and lines and whatever, and just then walk away from it, come back and think, oh, what shape can I see in there? What does that trigger?
Yeah, I guess it's like the ink blots challenge, isn't it? It's like you've got this loads of squiggles and you find something in it.
Yeah.
You can also use collage. Tear up paper and draw over it. You can put Post-its over bits of it. And then what I like about this technique is you start drawing, or you might put some collage down, start drawing. But then if you don't like a bit, just whack another bit of collage over the top, or put a bit of paint over the top and then work back into it. And you can just keep on going, altering the bits that you don't like, adding new bits to it.
Yeah. Imagine that like in years to come, because on that, have you ever seen that program Fake or Fortune with the art?
No, you told me about it.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out if it's real, if it's done, if it's a genuine Monet or whatever. And what they often do is they X-ray the piece of art, and they'll find what they call the pentimenti, which is basically where an artist changes his or her mind as they're painting. So they might decide, actually, I'm not happy with the hand in that position. I need to adjust that. And this X-ray shows all of those adjustments that they make, which can help tell whether that person is the real artist or not. Because if it's absolutely perfect first time, it suggests that they've copied rather than, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But can you imagine in, this day and age where a lot of people use mixed media and collage, and there's going to be a lot of that, isn't there?
Totally, yeah.
Loads of bits of collage over bits that went wrong.
Yeah, like we're discovering Post-it notes, weren't
yes.
we? Oh, they used to use these.
Yeah. You could get inspired by things other than art. So it could be from a I don't know, a bit of scrap material that you could clip in your sketchbook and come back to later. Might be the colour combination of that material you like. In fact, collecting anything like that in a sketchbook is always a good idea. It might be I don't know. So it's like a sketchbook, I think is a really good place to start when you're playing. Just when you're starting out. And I'm always fascinated by those ones that you see that aren't just full of sketches, but have got, scraps of paper, beer mats, material, photos, all stuck in there where it's so full that the artist can't actually close it properly. I mean, as well as drawing, obviously, but that's what you call a real artist playground, isn't it? Or maybe it's just something you see on an advert that catches your eye. Write it down in your sketchbook. And you do this, don't you, Tara? You've spoken about it before, where it's the credits that you like.
Yeah.
Something like that. Just write down what it is you like about that. Maybe
so useful, something like that, especially when you're going to make a piece the next day and you don't know what you're going to do, and then you just spot something that could be, walking down the road, you spot a texture or whatever, couldn't it? Or the TV, and it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing now. Yeah. It's so good. So good.
Well, like you say, perhaps you spot something that a non-creative person might not. And that's the thing about seeing like an artist, isn't it? A good example of that, it was when I was about to throw that crushed Coke can in the bin. Now, we'd had a couple of people over one night. One of them had brought with them some decaffeinated Coca-Cola, and it was in a gold can, which I hadn't seen many of those before. It's in the silver ones and the red ones. And I was about to throw this crushed Coke can in the bin before it caught the light, and I thought, God, actually, do you know what? That might make a really interesting thing to paint. Now, most people would have just chucked that can away. But if you keep your eyes open to things like that, they'll make for an inspiration at a later date. And actually, that Coke can, I'm pretty sure, has been sitting in my art room cupboard for, I don't know, must be at least 6 months, possibly longer. And I just happened to be going through it, and I picked it up. Thought, oh, I'd forgotten about that. And straight away, I was like, oh, yeah, I want to paint that. That's going to be perfect.
You can also break what you're drawing into really simplified shapes. Do you remember those old oil painting by number things?
Yes, I do. I used to do those at my nan's. Painting by numbers.
You could not. I don't mean it goes detailed as that, but you could pick really simple, big shapes. You can see maybe a shadow shape or something, but simplify it and make it really blocky. And then colour those shapes in. You don't even have to use traditional colours to colour them in, but maybe just do it. And I get mixed up in all the wording here, but you want the dark bits to be dark still and the lighter bits to be lighter, but you could do it with different colours. You can tell me the proper terminology for that, Sandra.
No,
the tone, when you have the dark bit.
Tonal values.
Tonal values, yeah. So you want to get your tonal values right, but still use funny colours. But you could do that, and you could do nice sweeping shapes, but then you could try another one and maybe they're really angular shapes, but you still use the same shapes with straight lines. And I did that on one of my faces as well.
Cool.
Oh, what's me again?
It is, yeah. I gave you the next one. Because this is something I'd never do.
You can also create a monoprint. So a monoprint is basically just when you get something, you could do it on a bit of plastic maybe, like a plastic sleeve. Put a load of ink or something on there, then you get turn it upside down another piece of paper, put a piece of paper on top of it, and then draw something on that. And obviously where you're pressing, the ink goes onto the paper. But what you do get is some really nice textures and stuff. So you could then go in and do the thing we were talking about before with a collage, and maybe either use bits of that in a collage, or you could collage over the top of it and draw into it as well. And again, it's one of those things where it's a little bit haphazard. You can't completely control a monoprint. You can also do that with near colours, actually. Have I ever told you this?
No.
In my course, so basically if you get a plastic sleeve, draw like near colour on top of it, and then you get either some gesso, clear gesso or matte medium, sort of mix it in, and then you can use that, tip that upside down and press down and make a line with it.
It's like being a kid in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like that's what you said at the beginning.
Yeah, it is. It's like being a kid in a school art class. They're encouraged to experiment and do all sorts, aren't they? Yeah. And I think we forget to do that sometimes as adults. We forget what those primary school art classes were like, and that's what it's all about.
I've told you multiple times, haven't I, that when I was a kid, I once told my teacher I'd finished everything, and she says, "Have you been to the art table? Have you played in the sandpit?" You know, and I go, "No." "Well, you haven't finished your work then."
I bet you love that.
This is when I was about 15. No. This is when about 5.
Oh, those were the days.
Anyway, do you know what we normally do now, don't you?
Well, I do know what we normally do now, Tara.
We normally read answers to our previous question, and the question was, what would be your ideal date for your inner artist? But somebody, namely me, forgot to post the question up. So, unfortunately, we've only got 2 answers so far because I hastily posted it yesterday. So,
we'll probably get another load today.
We might do. So, I don't know what you want to do, Sandra.
Well, let's read those 2 answers out. You get a slap on the wrist and I need to start reminding you.
Okay. And the problem is I don't know where the answers are either.
Instagram, aren't they?
Oh, I found it. I'd saved it on my machine. Here we go. So have you got them as well, or do I need to read them out?
No, you're going to have to read these.
Okay, so I've got one by Mag Great Art.
Hopefully it's really long.
No, it's really short. She said, go by the train into the city, have lunch and take pictures at High Park. I don't know what High Park is, but it's obviously somewhere really nice. And then this one made me not laugh. I've got Diable1, and it's on Instagram. As a huge fan of Star Wars, it is and always has been May the 4th. Ah, groan.
So, okay, we have a new question, which this time we will definitely post. And it is, what is the happiest art-related accident you've ever had? So what is the happiest art-related accident you ever had? And Tara's going to be posting that up on Monday as we release this podcast.
Yeah, can somebody remind me, if you notice a question isn't there, can you shout at me?
Yeah, I'll shout at you. I love shouting at you.
Anyway, what is your happiest art-related accident?
Mine?
Yeah.
Ooh, do you know what?
Bottle top?
No. No, I don't know, because I haven't really thought about it. But I've had lots and lots of happy accidents, and I think happy accidents are what has made me a better artist, better at what I do. Like by accidentally, doing something. And, oh, that works. No, I can't think actually, because I haven't actually thought about it. I should have done. What about you?
I think one of mine is a recent one, which was by mistake putting gouache on my painting, thinking it was matte medium. I think I told you this before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm using matte medium, putting it all on my charcoal with my roller, and then I just grab a tube and go to put some more on, and it's white gouache.
I've just realised what our happiest art-related accident actually is.
What, meeting?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
It's not happy though, is it?
Meeting? What was it then?
I don't know, some mishap.
Us meeting online. That was a very happy art-related incident.
Oh,
accident.
You're so lovely and I'm so not.
You're so horrible.
I am. So as always, you can tweet us your answers if I remember to put up the question at Kick Creatives, or let us know in the Facebook group, which if you haven't joined, I suggest you do. We'll put the question up there and also on our Facebook page and, of course, on Instagram, which is Kick in the Creatives.
So we hope that gave you the kick in the creatives you needed. And don't forget to pop over to our website at kickinthecreatives.com to find out how you can take part in some of our upcoming creative challenges. And, of course, there you can also subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you are enjoying the podcast, we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a little review on iTunes, or even just a star rating if you don't have much time.
And also don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll keep up with all the upcoming challenges and podcasts if you do that.
If you enjoy what we do and you'd like to help support us here at Kicking the Creatives, you can now do so by supporting us with a cup of coffee, much needed at the moment. You can find the link to that on our website. It's the Ko-fi link. And of course, we're not going to buy coffee with it, really. We're going to actually help pay for our hosting and all those little bits and pieces. So any little thing, chocolate, hot chocolate. Yeah, so it all helps us and we really appreciate it. But anyway, we will see you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you did, perhaps you'd like to share it and leave a review for us on iTunes. Back soon. Welcome to today's episode, which is all about the artist's playground. But before I go on to that, Tara, are you happy?
Oh my God!
Are you happy with that title?
Oh my God! How many false starts are we getting?
Are you happy?
Start again and don't ask me because we're going to have another stupid start again, aren't we?
Okay.
We were confusing people last time.